Hello and welcome back to episode 21 of Lessons Learned. I'm Dillon.
And I'm Evan. And today, I didn't have my tab open. In today's episode, Jordan Peterson brings us into the world of the medieval alchemist by showing us how they saw the world. He then argues that our interpretation of the world has largely not changed from theirs, even if we think it has.
And we're already off to Evan doesn't have tabs open start. Hello everyone, and we don't have a current event. I mean, there's a lot of things going on, like, don't get us wrong, there's plenty of current events, but we're trying to tie it into the book. I believe we only have a couple more episodes left.
It's looking like 3.
3, including this one?
Yeah.
Then sick. Then that means there's only 3, including this episode, left for the book Jordan Peterson's Maps of Meaning, published in 1999.
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify that because sometimes it's confusing. Apparently.
Oh, that it's old?
No, that I don't know. People get confused apparently. So we don't have a like that. That's it. That's our segue. I hope you like it.
Yeah.
Evan, begin.
Cool. Okay, so yeah, today we're going to talk about medieval alchemy as a study, I guess you could call it. And we're going to start with the guy that kind of introduced Jordan Peterson to alchemy, which is Carl Jung.
Is this the same Carl Jung that does the 16 personality test is based off of?
Like the Myers-Briggs, yeah, kind of, yeah.
Really?
With his archetypes
yes.
and stuff, yeah.
Oh.
So
okay.
This is stuff I didn't know about Jung. He saw religion as a profoundly important means of adaptation.
Okay.
So he actually got a lot of flack, according to Peterson, from other social scientists and psychologists and stuff for like even considering religion.
Oh, wait, okay. Can you put me in the Carl Jung?
Yeah.
What time period?
Oh, mid 20th century.
Mid 20th century.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's not that long ago.
No.
Okay,
no.
Okay. And then this is going to end up tying into medieval alchemy.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay.
Yeah, he studied it. He studied it. He studied religion and myths and everything like that.
Okay. Gotcha.
So he was concerned with promotion of mental health.
Mm-hmm.
He thought that in order to properly address it, we needed to understand value. So that's why he was looking into myths and religion and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he was overlooked because he took the statements of religion seriously.
Oh no.
I know.
How dare he?
How dare he indeed. But really that's what Jordan Peterson's doing in this book.
Yeah.
So he also brings up Jung's collective unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about that before.
Yes.
But I wanted to give a better way that he talks about it. This is me paraphrasing, but he pretty much says that Jung's collective unconscious acts as the narratives that our culture passes down.
Okay.
So, and we'll talk about it in a couple episodes as well, but like, it's how you learn certain behaviors from your parents.
That's right.
That they didn't really say.
Yeah.
And they learned those behaviors implicitly without their parents telling them.
Right.
And it's stories and narratives and stuff have been passed down that way.
Yeah.
So that was just a good definition of it. Now we can get into the alchemy that Jung and then Peterson were interested in.
Okay.
So what do you know about alchemy? Medieval alchemy.
Well, based off of my extensive research in Elder Scrolls V Skyrim by our video game Lord and Savior, Todd Howard.
Yeah.
Made by Bethesda. You put things in a thing and then your guy goes ch-ch-ch-ch. And then you have a potion.
So potion making?
That's honestly, as dumb as it sounds, the extent of my understanding. If I had to speculate, if I had to speculate what it actually was, I believe it was like a form of medicine.
Okay.
That's my best guess.
Okay. That's not too far off.
Okay.
It's not quite right, but what they're trying to do is focus on the transmutation of the soul, as well as like transmuting metal, so turning other metals into gold.
Right. I remember that spell in Skyrim. It was a very useful one.
Yeah, I don't know that, but their primary like saying for alchemists was, "In filth it will be found,"
Hmm.
and the idea was that you could find what you need most in the place that you least want to look,
Okay.
which is probably going to be the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
The things that are most informative are likely to be the most painful,
Mm-hmm.
given that. So it's easy to run away. So it's hard to look where you don't want to look.
Yeah.
Peterson says that rejection of unbearable facts stifles adaptation and strangles life. And we've talked about that idea before with the decadent and the fascist, how they ignore stuff and it just gets worse and worse.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually thought that that sounded like your testimony that you gave recently.
Oh.
Because if you aren't willing to accept that you don't know stuff and that you can need help, then you're not adapting.
Yeah. Well, and even beyond that, like, it is the harder road to admit that you need help. Mm-hmm. It's the harder road to encounter the unknown and not only say, "Oh, I need help," but to even say like, "Oh, I don't know this." Like, my experience growing up was like, you would just have to learn when people didn't know something because they would never tell you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I found myself doing. And then I would go, after the moment, I'd go, wait a second. That person knew everything about, simplicity's sake, microphones. They knew everything about microphones. And I know an okay amount about microphones. And because in the moment I was like, well, I don't want to look dumb. I want to look like I know what I'm talking about. So I was like, yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. But I could have been like, no, can you explain that? And learned more from the person that knew all that information. And it's like, conflict of interest, how you like the collective unconscious versus like what you should be doing. Are you allowing what you kind of grew up experiencing to battle the fact that you need to take the harder road, if you will, and ask for help or say I don't know, or delve into the unknown truly rather than like trying to kind of shield yourself from it, is what I'd say. Saying no, I know what you're talking about. Like, I'd say that's like, you're not walking away from it, but you're definitely like shielding it, because they could still throw it at you,
right?
But there's that higher chance that they'll be like, okay, cool, and just continue,
right?
So,
and then to add on to, I want to add on to it myself, but Jordan Peterson can. He says, we choose one path or another at every decision point in our lives and emerge as the sum total of our choices.
Yeah.
So kind of what you're talking about, every time you don't ask for help, that's stuck with you. Like, it's too late.
Yeah.
You've already missed the opportunity to grow there.
Yeah.
And you're either going to have to catch up some other time and it's going to suck later, or you just won't catch up.
Yeah, I mean, I know we had talked about this numerous episodes ago. Although if you're listening or watching, this comment has nothing to do with that episode. If I had started playing guitar, like actually trying a little harder years ago, where would I be now?
Right.
Even if I didn't have the, the lessons or the books or whatever, even if I was just messing around more often than not, I'd be where I would want to be now, which is like able to play most anything,
Right.
But because I didn't do it then, I can't do it now. So now I have to do it when I wish I had done it then, which is like the relapse of everything that we experience.
Well, and it's the same thing that I've experienced with reading books. I really notice it with books where I'll have a book and maybe I'll start reading it, or I'll get it and I want to read it, but I don't start it right away. And then it's months later and I haven't touched it.
Yeah.
And then I finally pick it up and start reading it. And I'm like, wow, I could have known all of this stuff so long ago. And it could have informed me so many times prior to this.
Dude, and I don't want to derail our conversation a whole lot, but like, that's something I've been struggling with, is like, I had an experience, the experience hurt, so I learned, so I want to share that with people. But I'm learning a lot of people don't want that. They don't want that shared information. They don't want you to tell them, oh yeah, I was looking at this car and I think I'm gonna get it. Oh, well, before you get it, like, have you looked at the other options? Did you look at this? Because I know from my experience that that's not a great car, or that's not a reliable brand, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is. And they don't want the information. Same thing with like Apple. Oh, well, you could video edit on Apple. It's fine. It's got a cute interface. But if you want like power and storage and customizability for what you're actually doing, your real world application, don't get an Apple.
So do you think that people are just, would they rather experience it themselves? Are they just not great about thinking ahead of time and being like, oh, this person might know what they're talking about?
I believe there's two major things. One, people in our society, culture, whatever, don't really value wisdom. Wisdom being a lived experience.
Mm.
They don't really value it because they want to experience it for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And two, playing off of experiencing it for themselves, they're not ready to confront that problem.
Mm.
So if you have a car and the car's got issues and your friend's like, yo, honestly, you probably should sell the car. Those are not great cars. That's a really bad year. You're going to have way more problems. It's going to cost you so much money. And in that moment, they just don't want to confront that reality. Because that's a hard reality. Crap. Okay, so now I got this beater car that sucks and I have to get rid of it. I got it like 5 months ago. I don't want to do this. So then they keep throwing money at it until they look at, after the end of the year, $10,000 to fix it. They had to go through it because they didn't feel that the weight of what you were saying equated to the difficulty that they would have to do to overcome and take the advice. Mm-hmm. At least in my understanding, those are the two big things.
Mm. Yeah, I think that that's a benefit. Well, that's why I like history and literature.
Mm-hmm.
Is because people can give you that wisdom.
Yeah.
But a lot of people think it's boring or not applicable, and then they don't learn from it. Hey. I saw a good meme. There was historians, and it was like, we learn history, so that like we can tell people not to do something, so history doesn't repeat itself.
Mm-hmm. And then history repeats itself.
We just watch it on the sidelines because no one listens. Yeah,
honestly, that's the best part about being in like doing work in IT.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you probably shouldn't do that. I don't care. I don't want to deal with it.
Right.
How much is it going to cost me? Well, it's going to cost you a decent amount. Okay.
Well, and I
figure it out.
I think that probably has something to do with what we're talking about with this alchemy stuff.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah. So, because there's a lot of, I think, humility that's necessary for this transformation that we'll be talking about.
Yeah. Okay.
So, now that we've kind of gone over what the point of alchemy was,
okay,
I guess
transmutation, right?
Yeah, let's talk about the world.
Okay.
Of the alchemist. So they had a different system of categorization. It was just different because some of their things that they would consider as like a unitary concept or single concept, we would say is like multiple diverse things. And it's pretty much because like we've had more time to explore and be able to differentiate.
So they'd be like wood. That's it. Everything's just wood, and we're like, well, no. There's like hardwood, softwood, etc.
Right. Yeah. Okay. It's not necessarily with wood, but yes, it's like that.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
So the first main category that's important is matter. Mm-hmm. Matter is the stuff. It's the physical world, and it's also the stuff of which experience is made. Okay. So it's both physical and it's kind of like how we think of information.
Oh.
So it's the things we can learn pretty much.
Interesting way to define a lot of things.
Yep, they're more broad categories than what we are used to.
Okay, so...
And if you want to quote to explain it further. The primal element of alchemy was something embedded or implicit in the world, something often hidden that could emerge unexpectedly. This unexpected emergence can be regarded as the capacity of the object to transcend its categorical representation. So it could be a physical thing, but it could also do something that you don't expect it to do. Like in the physical world when you're trying to learn about it.
Right.
Like that's kind of what science is testing the physical world to learn more about it.
Yeah.
So when it does something unexpected, they saw that unexpected thing as the capacity of that object to transcend what they initially thought it was. Does that make sense? Is that clear? It'd be like with he didn't really give any examples of the process.
I think the biggest thing I'm caught up on is that it's both physical world and experiential.
Mm-hmm.
The experiential part.
It's not necessarily experience,
Uh-huh.
but it's the information itself.
From the physical thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Physical and non-physical. Okay. It's literally just like information.
Just okay.
Information's always there.
That's where you're losing me again.
You just have to be okay with the concepts.
You just have to be okay with matter is physical things and information.
Yeah.
So it's like matter is and matter, yep. And what matters,
yes,
per se.
Exactly. That's something he says in there.
Okay.
It's what matters.
Then that's easier to follow. Okay. I think that's easier to follow.
Yeah. So and it's because they were not as good at separating between the empirical world and the affective world.
Okay.
So for them, the two are combined.
Mm-hmm.
So like if there was someone getting sick, they might say it's a demon. Mm-hmm. That's getting them sick because they're combining two different worlds.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That would make a lot more sense.
So understanding that, they thought that the matter or the world was corrupt because it was incomplete. They thought that the world didn't feel redeemed.
Oh. In like a religious sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's also conflated with how we think about the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
So it always has potential because it can do those unexpected things.
Okay.
And transcend the understanding that you have of it right now.
Sure.
So that's matter. Next, there's spirit, which is a little bit more simple. That is just the transcendent capacity of an object. That's the ability of it to change. It's not really changing, but it's doing something unexpected, which changes your understanding of the object.
Oh, what are these categories?
These are just the most basic ones.
They're not. They're both basic and just so obscure. And these are categories for alchemy.
I think it's hard for us because they were in a world where the affective was connected to the empirical. So these were just always one naturally for them. They were combined. We are used to those being two different things.
Yeah.
So it's hard for us to think about it together.
Man. Yeah, holy cow.
And I mean, we'll talk about this, I think, if not this episode, the next episode we'll talk about it. But C.S. Lewis has his book, The Discarded Image.
Okay.
And that talks about the way that medieval people saw the world. They thought it was just a system of spheres because it was the one where the earth was the center of the universe.
Oh, boy.
So they're like the innermost sphere, and the further out you go, the more perfect it gets. So they thought that God was at the outermost sphere controlling everything from there. So
they got it wrong, but they also didn't.
Well, so because of that, like when natural disasters happened or really when anything happened, they thought that was God turning the spheres, controlling the world that way. So they actually it wasn't a heliocentric model, but it wasn't we're the center of the universe, we're super important and stuff like that. Right. It's like, no, we're in the trash heap because we're the furthest thing away from God right now on Earth.
I see how they saw that.
But because that's how they saw the world, everything natural that happened had a spiritual component. Right.
Which that's something I question, but that's just me personally being weird.
Yeah. So I don't really know my thoughts about it personally, but that's how they saw it. Yeah. So they've got matter, they've got spirit, and then we'll talk about gold. Gold isn't really
what are we defining again?
These are kind of the parts of
the three parts of alchemy.
These are probably the three most basic things
of alchemy
to understand it. We'll get a little bit more in depth later with more elements, you could call them, but these are the ones it kind of has to go in levels. You understand the big one, and then you get a little bit smaller, more specific to understand it later.
I really thought this was going to open with Avatar: The Last Airbender kind of elements.
Oh no,
not matter is matter, but also what matters, that's matter.
Yeah, it's a good way to say it. So gold then next.
Okay.
Gold, they saw it was the ideal as it could be perceived in the world. So it was associated with divinity. it doesn't tarnish, it doesn't dull, it doesn't rust. So they saw it as like a physical representation of like eternalness, immortality.
But gold does tarnish.
Well, in there it said that it didn't. I don't know enough about metals.
Well,
but
why do people get their wedding bands cleaned?
I don't know. I don't know anything about that.
Think about it.
Maybe it's not real gold.
No, it is. I understand. Ignore my stupid comment. Like, I understand the point. I was just trying to, well, technically.
Oh, well, that's what I like doing, so I understand it. As gold is also rare, rather than common. It's gold. It's shiny like the sun, so they saw it as being connected to the divinity of like the sun.
So there's a lot of other things.
They thought that it was the ideal end for all other metals. So they thought that all metals would eventually become gold.
Okay.
They thought that transmutation was like a natural process that happened. And he gives the analogy, alchemists saw themselves as the midwife to nature. Their goal was to turn metal into gold faster. They're trying to just speed up the process that already happens. Okay.
I follow this, like...
You don't have to agree with it, but...
No, I think if I agreed with it, you would be concerned about my well-being.
I would be.
I don't know, Evan. It seems pretty convincing to me. I might be convinced.
It's a fun theory. But this part's less fun.
It's a fun theory.
This one you'll disagree with.
It's a fun childhood imagination.
Yeah. So they said alchemists were unsatisfied with the world and were searching for redemptive knowledge. They were trying to redeem the world that they saw as corrupt because they saw it as incomplete. Even though Christ had redeemed the world, they still felt unredeemed and felt the world was unredeemed and, quote, remained unsatisfied with the present, still too mortal condition. So they thought that the world didn't feel like it was good enough. They didn't feel good enough. And to me, it kind of seems like they couldn't accept Christ's message that like you can't do anything to help yourself be saved. They just like weren't happy with that, so they're like, that's wrong. We got to save ourselves somehow.
Can you imagine believing wholeheartedly in Christ? You were like, yeah, Jesus? No, my grandpa knew him. My grandpa was Peter. Knew him, but
well, these are later than that.
I'm just saying.
These guys.
Point is like you are like God is the way. Jesus Christ is the way.
And I don't know how Christian these guys were.
But you know, I don't know if he got that last part right, where like he sacrificed himself to redeem us. Like that might be a little bit wrong. I know he resurrected, but
and I think they have a weird way that they handled Jesus and Christianity. I know they challenged the church, and they get in trouble for it.
Like a good flogging.
But yeah, so they thought that to redeem or perfect nature, which was kind of their goal.
Oh boy.
Man had to become perfect as well. So this is where Peterson says that they identified with the exploratory hero.
What?
Because I thought about this, they don't have to be correct in their assumption, but what they're trying to do is they think that the present isn't good enough. Right. So they're like going into the unknown to try and make the present better. Right. They can be incorrect about what is better or not, but that does identify them with his exploratory hero.
See, and I feel like this goes back to something we were talking about a while ago when we were covering the exploratory hero. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, I feel like the problem is the exploratory hero isn't inherently good. They just are. And we're kind of like wishy-washy about where Peterson saw that. Mm-hmm. But I feel like we have to say he sees it just as we felt it had to be seen, which was it doesn't have to be good, but it's not always bad. It just is. Because there's no way Dr. Jordan B. Peterson agrees with transmutation.
No, he doesn't have to agree with it to think that it was an important step.
No, right. But my point is I feel like it helps us see better and see how he's defining the exploratory hero as it just is. It's a neutral thing. It just is. It's not what is good. Like, you aren't good for being the exploratory hero.
But he's saying it is good.
Well, no.
He thinks it is good because we'll talk about. Actually, it's kind of the next point that this next major thing we'll talk about, but they're the ones that pushed us towards science as a field of trying to understand the world.
Right.
Their basic assumption that you could learn from the material world is the foundation of modern science.
Yeah.
So he does think that what they did is good. They were wrong.
Yeah.
But what they did was good.
Right. And like, I think that's the point I'm trying to crudely get to, which is like, what they do in of itself isn't the good.
But he thought they were wrong, but what they were doing was good.
Resulted in a good coming from it.
I think I see what you mean.
You know what I mean? Because like it isn't good to question the like what we see today, like to question the structure of like the government to like its very core, like freedom of speech,
but he
right
thought
to bear arms, like questioning that to such an extreme degree where you're like, no, this needs to be done. Like we need to get rid of these things. That isn't good. But what goodness could come from it would be a result, not the actual act.
But I think he would think that that is good, is questioning all of your base assumptions and reevaluating them. And assuming that maybe we don't have everything understood that we think we do. He does think that is good.
I guess. I just feel like it needs to be... I feel like there needs to be a criteria in which it isn't like... It doesn't overrun what is like existing as... Or sorry.
Well, and he'll talk about the process later where it's... You kind of put all of your beliefs and assumptions, you suspend them for a second. You go and look at the unknown,
right?
And then you come back and then you combine the two.
Yeah.
So you're not completely getting rid of all of your assumptions.
No,
but you are putting them to the side.
And that's what I feel like the problem is today. I don't think people that are questioning things are putting their beliefs in suspension. I think they're taking their beliefs die hard to the thing they're trying to change, explore, whatever you want to look at it, thus not allowing them to make that connection. Which is, I think, something we see among, like, political arguments, right? Whereas, like, you'll see the conservatives say, like, I understand what you're saying. And they'll say, like, given X, Y, and Z. But when you look at it from this angle, it doesn't work anymore. And boom, the argument's over. So I think that's something we see is the left isn't able to suspend what their belief is. Because if they were to do so, then I feel like, at least my understanding is, consequentially, they would have to come to the conclusion that their current belief that they're suspending is flawed. And they can't do that.
I'm sure there's degrees of it.
No, yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying this is for everyone. This is...
Yeah.
It's just a general statement that works for, I'd say, most things.
I'm sure everyone does it to some degree.
Oh, yeah.
With certain
absolutely
topics and stuff.
It's the collective unconscious, I'd say.
Well, we've already kind of gotten to why it matters today.
Oh.
But let's talk about why it matters today.
Oh, okay. If you would like to rewind the video, then you can answer that question yourself.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you want to give any sort of answer to that question?
Why it matters today?
Yeah. Anything that we haven't already said?
I guess the biggest thing that really comes to mind in a specific example is the one where Michael Knowles is discussing with that girl. She's a student at like a medical school. I believe it's Harvard. But she'll say something and then he questions it and she won't give him a real answer. She just kind of gives him like the answer that you could only understand given these presumptions. You know? And then he's like, wait, now hold on. You're assuming a lot of things. And she's like, no. Like, she can't not make those assumptions because then everything wouldn't work. Like, he's like, she said, birthing people. And he was like, birthing people? You mean just women? No, because da-da-da-da-da. And he's like, right, but how do you give birth? Like, what do you need? And if you have the uterus, what does that make you biologically? And she couldn't connect those dots because if she did, then her entire argument, her entire case would just fall apart. That's a specific example of many arguments. And I know you've seen them, but to clarify.
Okay. I think that is an important way. He really talks about the field of science because that's what he knows about. So
yeah.
I'm going to read a pretty long quote here. I think it's worth it, though. So if you want to interrupt me at any point, if you have something to say,
Holy cow.
you can go for it.
That is very long.
You have
I'm
it
gonna
open?
read along.
You have this open, you cheater?
Yeah, but I can't follow you. But I'm gonna read along with this one, or else I'll get lost.
Okay. I don't think it's a complicated one, but
Sure, that's what you say.
it is difficult for moderns to realize why any of this might be relevant. Our psychology and psychiatry, our sciences of the mind, are devoted, at least in theory, to empirical evaluation and treatment of mental disorders. But this is mostly smoke and screen. We are aiming always at an ideal. We currently prefer to leave the nature of that ideal implicit because that helps us sidestep any number of issues that would immediately become overwhelming difficulty if they were clearly comprehended. What do you think of that so far?
You changed some of the words.
I did?
It's as if they were clearly apprehended.
What did I say?
Comprehended.
Oh, it is a synonym.
It is?
Yeah. To apprehend something is to like grab it or gather it.
It is, isn't it? Oh my gosh. I worry about myself sometimes. It still was hard to follow. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I get what he's saying. Like, I'm following it thus far. He's just, it's kind of like I'm gonna explain it so you can correct me where I'm wrong. But he's just re-explaining what we discussed about like our minds and how we think about things are a certain way, and to kind of put ourselves in a different mindset to understand the science that they're talking about is like very like grinding gears.
Well, and specifically what he's saying here is that we act like we're talking about empirical science.
Okay.
Really, we're talking about an ideal.
Oh.
They're like scientists, psychiatrists, and psychologists are not avoiding having some sort of ideal man. So I'll keep going and that'll become more clear.
Okay.
So we define health as that state consisting of an absence of diseases or disorders and leave it at that. As if the notion of disease or disorder, or the absence thereof, is not by necessity a medieval concatenation of moral philosophy and empirical description. So what he's saying is we talk about diseases and disorders and act like we didn't get them from medieval times and this medieval alchemist worldview. We try to act like it's a...
Oh, that we didn't like progress from that viewpoint?
He's saying at a fundamental level, no. But
Right.
we act like we did.
No, yeah. I mean, we act like we didn't come from, or that we, sorry, I'm like, words are hard tonight. We act like we aren't living in a country that came from people who left a tyrannical ruling country and wanted to stop that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we act like we live in a country where everything's bad all the time, blah, 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 political stuff. But, like, no, like, this country had a founding. This is a young country. But the founding and understanding why is important.
Mm-hmm.
Not only is it important, but, like, if you're going to disregard the why, then disregard any argument you want to make.
Your middle fingers are pointing out.
Yeah, because
You're being rude to the camera.
I'm sorry, camera. For anyone listening, it's irrelevant. Evan makes up irrelevant points. Ignore him.
I can't see you.
Yeah, because I thought you were going to keep reading.
I can. The same might be said for depression, for schizophrenia, for personality disorders, and so on. Lurking in the background is an implicit, that is unconscious ideal, which against all insufficient present states are necessarily and detrimentally compared.
Okay.
So, I guess I'll go on to the next one. It's pretty short, and I think it drives the point home. Sooner or later, however, we will have to come to terms with the fact that we are in fact attempting to produce the ideal man, and will have to define explicitly what that means. So, doctors and psychologists and all of these people in science act like they're dealing in only empirical evidence and only the world of fact, when really at the base of what they're doing, they have an assumption about what the ideal person is like.
Yes.
And they just ignore that fact.
Right.
Because they want to remain scientifically neutral, supposedly, and avoid having to make any sort of value judgments.
Yeah.
But they are making one when they assume that someone is not ideal.
Yeah.
Or if they have some sort of sickness, they have to compare that to the person that is healthy.
Yeah.
So I thought that was important.
No, well, and I think it brings up an intriguing point about going to like the doctors. Like there is an ideal you that they see.
Goodbye.
Oh. Goodbye, background. If you're listening, nothing happened. But if you're watching, you know what happened. I'm a little sad right now. No, don't touch it.
Okay.
Yeah, but going to the doctors, it's like there is an ideal you that they see, and yeah, wow, that's just an interesting point. They don't address that.
No.
They address the things that guide you to that.
Right, the things that are wrong, or
they don't explicitly say like we're trying to get you here because this is ideal. But the only reason they've come to this ideal conclusion is because that is what is deemed as healthy. But then, I mean, at least what I'm learning is that like healthy is very, very misunderstood. Very misunderstood. And I'm not talking about like the whole like Lizzo kind of thing where the left is like, oh no, fat's beautiful, taking up 3 seats on an airplane. That's like, no, way to go. No, not way to go. I take up 1 seat. I'm not saying there's much room after that, but I take up 1. So my point is like, if you look at like some bodybuilders or strongman, you might be like, that's really healthy. Look how strong they are. Look how in shape they are. Yeah, and then you consider all the roids they do, and the fact that like strong men, and I'm not sure about bodybuilders, but I know strong men have literally so much muscle on their chest. They have to wear a sleep apnea machine because they can't breathe because their chest is so heavy. Wow. That's how much muscle that is. It's an incredible amount. They have incredibly hard working ethics and stuff. But now let me ask you, is that healthy?
Right. Probably not.
Probably not. Okay, so then you can, I'm not saying not to do strongman. I think that's much better than being morbidly obese. But like, is that the end goal? Is that the healthy goal? So then what is healthy? And I feel like there's a much larger, not a large range, but more of a range than what people say. But also that range is probably smaller and bigger. Because it's like, obviously don't be fat. Don't be morbidly obese. But you hit a certain point of muscle, roids, whatever. Well, now you're facing the polar opposite.
Or super skinny, like deathly skinny.
Or anorexia. I mean, healthy, I feel like, is the balance.
Yeah.
Which, weird balance in life.
Indeed.
How dare we?
Well, and I was thinking about, I'm taking a Holocaust class right now, and a lot of the stuff, like, even in Hitler's Mein Kampf, I had to read a chapter of that this last week and write an essay thing about it. And he bases a lot of his justification in science. He tries to say that he tries to say that nature always segregates species, and so as humans we should do the same thing as segregate races. And he talks about inferior genetics versus superior genetics and stuff. And I'm wondering if part of what happened is that, but it is only off the top of my head, but maybe modernity cut off science from Christianity. And it was like a really hard cut. So then science went in a bunch of different directions to be used however people wanted to use it. And then the atrocities of the 20th century happened and people were like, okay, well, there probably is an ideal.
Yeah.
Because if there's not an ideal, that happens.
Yeah.
But I still don't want to be religious. So I'm not going to talk about the ideal.
I don't know why it stuck out to me, but like his point of segregating races based on like the what's the word you used? Why was he segregating races?
Because nature did it.
No, but
Like the superior, inferior.
yeah, like the genetics, the superior and
Mm-hmm.
inferior genetics. That is subjective.
He tries to make it an objective thing.
Right, but it's not. I understand,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not. But they're each.
Well, so he tries to prove that it's objective by saying like that the Aryan race was the first race, and that it's one of the only ones that can create culture.
Oh, wait, the Bible says that Adam had blonde hair and blue eyes?
Right, that's the thing. Is he just
Oh,
says it was the first.
it didn't say that?
Yeah.
That's so strange.
Yeah, so he never actually gives evidence for it, but he definitely makes the claim that yeah, it was the first one. It's been corrupted over time, which then it's like if it's the superior one, why is it being corrupted?
Well, but then you also have to consider that, like, okay, well, what do you mean by corrupting? Like, do you mean blending races? Because,
Yes.
like, I mean, like,
Yes, he thought that he called it blood poisoning, where if you
is this Harry Potter again?
pretty much if you have
Filthy mud blood.
kids with an inferior race, then you're sacrificing the greatness of your superior race in that kid.
Look, Usain Bolt is the fastest man on foot.
Yeah.
Over 20 miles an hour that man runs.
Yeah.
Because of his genetics.
Yeah.
I can't live in a world where people don't understand that races have different strengths and weaknesses. Like they just do. That's just genetically speaking. Like,
well, it's adaptability.
Right. Well, like black people have black skin because of melanin. Because in Africa there is sun and a lot of it, and we have white skin because we didn't face that thing.
Right.
And because of geography and climates and all this stuff, our bodies adapted and shifted. We're still humans, we're still people. That's why we look and talk and sound, and that's why we have all these same things, but that's the adaptive versus evolution thing.
Mm-hmm.
Doi. But like, yeah, different races have different strong suits.
Mm-hmm.
They just do.
But that doesn't make one better than the other.
No, because with a strong suit usually comes a weakness.
To be very clear, no race is better than another.
No, that's not how that works. Because my point is like with a strong suit comes a weakness.
Mm-hmm.
It just does. And I'm not going to go into each and every race's strong suit and weakness because, frankly, I just don't know enough about them.
Mm-hmm.
But what I do know is that when you're doing car work, you have to pick and choose. A turbocharger is great because it uses the exhaust to make more power for the engine. But a supercharger is also great because it makes continuous power.
Mm-hmm.
So the turbocharger's downfall is it's not continuous power. You have to wait for the exhaust. The supercharger's downfall is that you have to use engine power, not exhaust power. That's just how I don't often see things that aren't balanced in that way, like a give and take.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's the same thing with us. There's a give and take.
Yeah. I think we got on a tangent on that one.
We definitely did.
That's okay.
I hope so.
So he says that science is based on the assumption that it's worthwhile to analyze the material or collectively apprehensive sensory world, but we'll cut that part out because it's not as helpful. It's worthwhile to analyze the material world and its transformations. And that assumption was come up with by the alchemists.
Okay.
So that's just setting the stage for how important these guys are.
Okay.
Well, it's kind of like what he talks about at the beginning of the book, how we can't avoid making value judgments.
Mm-hmm.
Scientists today are following this value judgment that alchemists made back in the Middle Ages.
Ooh. It's kind of like the classroom thing in World War One.
Which thing?
Classrooms and standardized tests were invented during World War One and have not changed.
Yeah.
And that's the many problems in our education system.
Yeah. Exactly. Things don't change as much as we think they do.
Ironic.
So next he talks about the lapis philosophorum, or the philosopher's stone. So this is kind of a weird thing.
You're lying.
No, that's where it came from.
The philosopher's stone.
Yeah.
The sorcerer's stone.
Yeah.
That's where it came from.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a substance that could transform metals, as well as could, quote, confer upon its bearer complete knowledge, immortal life, and impeccable mental and physical health.
I was going to ask if this was a real thing, but then you read the quote and I realized that this was not a real stone at all.
No, but it's something that they searched for.
So they believed it was a real stone.
It wasn't
just an idea.
They thought that there could be some material that would be able to transform the world or redeem the world and redeem themselves.
That's not how that works. That's what Christ
So that was like, that was kind of their quest, because they thought finding that would help them transmute everything into gold.
Like Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Wow. That's silly.
Yes. But it's an important idea, because what he says is the alchemical fantasy provided the motive power for the empirical endeavor, or science. It provided the motive for being scientific, just as the dream of Judeo-Christianity provided motive power for the civilization of the West.
Really?
Which I think is a really important point, is you and I both know how foundational Christianity was to the ideas of the West and the structure of the West.
Yeah.
He's saying that alchemy is as important to science.
I mean, I can't say inherently for any reason that he's wrong, especially given that they're still using those ideas today.
Right. Yeah. He's saying that that's where it started.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting. Huh.
Haven't moved very far.
I felt like this was just a good lesson today.
Yeah.
Good chat.
Yeah. So that's all I have. Any last thoughts about any of that?
Well, alchemy is weird.
It is weird, but it's important.
I don't understand.
I like it. I think it's fun.
Oh, I think it's very cool. I say I don't understand because so why in video games do we like make potions and stuff and they say that's alchemy?
I'm sure they did some of that stuff. There was a lot of like trying to figure out what different materials did and stuff. Oh, one of the things that they did that he talks about in the book is they would experiment with like dissolving substances and that kind of thing. And I think there was this one thing where they would do something with sulfur that it would release the noxious gas.
Oh.
And like kill people.
Oh.
Because it was poisonous. And they ascribed to that a demon. They thought that sulfur brought demons. Because that's the not being able to separate the empirical from the affective.
Yeah.
So
that's a good one.
Yeah.
Hey, you want to smell this? Sure. Oh,
demon.
Must be a demon in there.
Yeah.
Oh, I can summon my own. Get your pocket demon here today. Come on, ladies and gentlemen. You can get
I'm sure
demon.
I mean, if you put yourself in their mind, like, you don't know anything about chemistry or whatever.
Okay. And I know nothing about chemistry. That's a lot of unlearning, but okay.
This rock or material that someone has starts to dissolve, and then you smell something weird, and then you just die.
Oh, well, it must be poisonous. Much like a snake.
But it's in the air. You can't see it.
Oh, And?
So it's in the air. It's invisible. It's probably a demon.
But if it... Okay, if... No. No. Because if a snake bites you and you die, you didn't see the venom. You probably
But you know that the snake did it to you.
You probably barely saw that you got bit because they're so quick.
I mean, you still see the snake bites you when it bites you, though.
Right. Sure. If you're paying attention.
Like in Genesis, he makes the analogy, or he turns Satan into a snake.
Yeah, okay.
There's been snakes the whole time.
Hang on.
Uh-huh.
So you're telling me I put a rock and the thing in it, and I said, sniff this, and my friend went and died, and I was like, oh, if you rock, demon.
Yeah, because it's
no
just a rock.
correlation with the inhalation of...
Well, it's like this is before they had germ theory and stuff.
But it's not about
like this was also...
I'm in a losing position. I know I'm in a losing position because I'm not them.
But the other issue is
argument at all.
The other issue is that this was back in the time when they had the 4 humors.
The what?
This was their medical theory, was that there was 4 humors. I'll look it up.
He's gonna look it up. In the meantime,
so I can listen for you.
I'm gonna make my point a little stronger.
Well, hold on, I found it.
Oh.
So there was the... Oh, I lost it. Okay, there was blood.
Mm-hmm.
There was yellow bile.
Okay.
There's black bile.
Uh-huh.
And there was phlegm.
Okay.
These 3 things, or 4 things, whoa.
Wow.
These 4 things had to be in balance in your body, and that was when you were healthy. So they thought that if you were too low in your black bile, then you would have like some sort of sickness. Or that was why you were acting the way that you were. So that's...
You mean if somebody was like, yeah, I only pooped once today, they would be like, you're possessed.
They might think you're low on blood and bleed you. Or they might think you're high in blood and bleed you.
Everything. Poop too much, bleed you. Poop too little, bleed you.
I don't remember which one's which. I don't remember what
Not
the 4
enough
humors
blood,
did,
bleed you.
Well, there was a lot of bleeding, yeah.
Oh, I know.
But that's all I've got.
Well, I don't have anything to add other than that. I think demon's kind of a bold conclusion to come to. But I understand. I'm in a losing seat. I'm not going to win this argument because I'm not them.
Well, yeah, that's my point. Is like it's bold for us.
Yeah.
But when you see the world as also having meaning embedded in it.
There's a couple other things I'd come to the conclusion of before.
But that's because you're way different. That's because we're way different
now. I know. I understand. I got it. Even though it doesn't seem like I understand. I do. I just like... Modernity is hard.
Yes, it is.
What if Hulk talked like that? Like, Hulk hungry?
Mm-hmm.
But instead of something like that, he used really big words.
Yeah.
And like the singularity kind of speak, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of Hulk hungry, Hulk famished. You know what I mean? I can't think of anything else, but like...
Well, it would just be like if... What's his character? Bruce Banner?
Mm-hmm.
It'd be like if there was a little bit more Bruce Banner.
No, Marvel already did that, and that was disgusting.
No, because that was Bruce Banner.
As Hulk.
Yeah.
Man.
I'm saying like Hulk with a sprinkle of Bruce Banner.
He was really okay with that transition, given the Thing from the Fantastic Four. He was not okay with that.
I don't know that.
Why do I talk to you? It's because I love you. Not because you know anything about comics.
I know that my favorite Thor is Rune King Thor. But that's all I know.
Oh yeah? How many comics of that have you read?
None.
Alright, there you go. You're done talking. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm going to let Evan close this one because that's his job now.
Yeah, I hope some of this was interesting to you guys. This one's a lot of foundation building for these alchemy ideas, so stick around for next episode, and we'll talk about this process of transformation that they had. It's a week away for you, unless you're listening to this after Monday. So
then it's 6 days away.
Yeah, have a good week or less than a week. And
unless you're listening to this a month from now and you're gonna follow this episode up with the next one.
Yeah, that too. So all right, guys, thanks for sticking around this long. We will let you know in the coming episodes what our next book will be.
Oh yeah.
And we will see you next week. Goodbye.
Okay, bye.